بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today, inshallah, we'll continue on with the tafsir of Surah Al-Baqara. We're starting from Ayah 114 to Ayah 120. So the Ayah start بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ولن ترضى عنك اليهود ولا النصارى حتى تتبع ملتهم. قل إن هدى الله هو الهدى ولئن اتبعت أهواءهم بعد الذي جاءك من العلم ما لك من الله من ولي ولا نصير. So Allah says, never will the Jews or Christians be pleased with you until you follow their faith. Says Allah, say Allah's guidance is the only true guidance. And if you were to follow their desires after all knowledge that comes to you, there would be none to protect you or help you against Allah. So the ayah talks about the Jews and Christians again, because previously we were talking, or the ayat were talking about the Jews and the Christians, and both of them are considered each others are kuffar, are not believers. So in this ayah, now Allah telling the Prophet ﷺ, and he also is telling us as the Muslim Ummah who's following the Prophet ﷺ, that the Jews and the Christians will never be satisfied or pleased with you, O Prophet Muhammad, or your people. So the ayah is telling us, and this is like this is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala telling us from the time of Muhammad alayhi salam that he was a messenger until today, until the end of the universe, until the end of the life, the Jews and Christians will never be satisfied with you until you follow their deen or their religion or their millah or whatever they believe in. So here, the ayah also, it's something very unique about this ayah, because in the ayah Allah says, وَلَن تَرْضَ عَنْكَ الْيَهُودُ وَلَا النَّصَارَى. He said, the Jews will not be satisfied and the Christians will not be satisfied or pleased. And that means that they are not the same, and they're not the same group, they're not the same belief, because the ayah says, وَلَن تَرْضَ عَنْكَ الْيَهُودُ وَلَا النَّصَارَى. The Jews and the Christians, it says, the Jews will not be satisfied and the Christians will not be satisfied. So the ayah itself is actually telling that the Jews and the Christians are not the same belief. In fact, the Jews and the Christians were believing that everyone else is the kafir. So the Jews were saying the Christians are kuffar, and the Christians were saying also the Jews are kuffar. In fact, in the previous ayah, if you remember, Allah mentioned in the ayah, says, وَقَالَتِ الْيَهُودُ لَيْسَتِ النَّصَارَى عَلَى شَيْءٍ وَقَالَتِ النَّصَارَى لَيْسَتِ الْيَهُودُ عَلَى شَيْءٍ. The Jews said that the Christians are not following anything, and the Christians said that the Jews are not following anything. So in this ayah, it's emphasizing this meaning, and that's why Allah said, وَلَن تَرْضَ عَنْكَ الْيَهُودُ وَلَا النَّصَارَى. So the Jews will not be satisfied or pleased, and the Christians will not be pleased. So he did not say the Jews and the Christians will not be pleased, because they're not the same group, they're not the same belief, they don't believe in the same thing. So that's why Allah said the Jews will not be satisfied and the Christian will not be satisfied. And this is actually very obvious, and we know that, for example, the Jews have accused Isa alayhi salam that he was a liar, and also they accused Mary that she committed zina, and also the Christian, they accused the Jews that they have killed Isa or Jesus alayhi salam. So both of them consider each other are disbelievers. So this ayah was focusing or highlighting on this meaning in these high-level words that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is using in this ayah. Now, the ayah also saying they will not be pleased with you. So that means Allah is telling the Prophet alayhi salam, so don't try to please them. Of course, the Prophet alayhi salam is not trying or will never be pleasing them. But this is actually a speak to the ummah of Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, that don't even try to please them because they will never be pleased. So whatever you try, they will never be pleased. They will never be satisfied. Why? Because the only thing to make them happy is to follow their own deen or their own belief. So that's why in many ayat or many hadith, the Prophet ﷺ also was telling the Muslimin that do not follow the footsteps of the Jews and the Christians. In one of the narrations of the Prophet ﷺ says, خالف اليهود والنصارى, act differently than the Jews and the Christians. Do whatever different than them. And another hadith of the Prophet ﷺ was saying, خالف اليهود فإنهم لا يصلون في نعالهم. The Jews, they don't pray in their shoes, with their shoes on. So the Prophet ﷺ telling the Muslimin, act different than the Jews. So that means you can pray with your shoes on. So because the Jews, for their ibadah, their worshiping, they don't pray with the shoes on. So the Prophet ﷺ said, do the opposite or act different than what the Jews and the Christians or the Jews are doing. So does that mean that we have to always pray with the shoes on? No, but it means that you can pray with the shoes on, as the Prophet ﷺ has done. So that the hukum here is like Allah is telling the ummah that don't follow the footsteps of the Jews and the Christians. And there is another hadith of the Prophet ﷺ was saying, لَتَتَّبِعُنَّ سُنَنَ مَنْ قَبْلِكُمْ شِبْرًا بِشِبْرٍ وَذِرَاعًا بِشِبْرَاعٍ. You would follow the people who are before you, which means the Jews and the Christians. So this hadith has mentioned to us, or the Prophet ﷺ brought it to us to tell us not to follow the footsteps of the Jews and the Christians, to do and act different what they are actually doing. So that's the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ means for us. So as we see today, unfortunately, like there are many people among the Muslimin, they actually copying what the Jews and Christians doing. Whatever they do in their ibadat or their deen, they try to copy them. They copy them in the way that they set up the masajid, or they do in the masajid. They copy them in the holidays of the Jews and the Christians. They copy them in the celebrating. They copy them in the calendar. They try to copy their calendar. They try to copy them in every aspect, which is actually prohibited. And that's what the Prophet and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala telling us not to follow the footsteps of the Jews and the Christians. Now, does that mean that we cannot take anything from them? Obviously, we can't take anything that is not related to the aqidah. We can't take anything that is not part of their deen or has anything to do with our deen. Anything related to the aqidah or the worshipping, this is something that definitely we cannot take. Can we take anything else like technologies, like material products, like anything else? So of course, we could take them from any people, not only the Jews and the Christians, but we could take it from anyone in the world, as long as it's not haram, was not prohibited by Islam, was not contradicting our aqidah. So the ayah here says, وَلَن تَرْضَ عَنْكَ الْيَهُودُ وَلَا النَّصَارَى حَتَّى تَتَّبِعَ مِلَّتَهُم, until you follow their millah. Now, let's talk a little bit here about the meaning of the millah. The millah, it's not, it doesn't mean the religion, because if you try to look into the translation of the word millah, you would probably give you millah means religion, or it means faith, or something like that. But in fact, millah, it's not meanings. So let's see what the scholars are saying about the meaning of the word millah. So Al-Jurjani, for example, one of the scholars said, the millah is something related to the prophet or comes to the prophet himself or any prophet in general. And he's trying to identify between millah and madhab and the sharia, between millah and the deen and the madhab and the sharia. They're like four things together. So he's saying the deen, it is something related to Allah or something comes to Allah, which means the aqidah, the belief, the faith, the core of any belief of the messengers. And the millah, it is the rules that comes to the prophet. So that means that belong or specifically belong to a certain prophet. And the madhab, he's saying, the madhab is like the sect, basically, within the deen or within the group, which is the madhab. As we know, there are like many madhabs in Islam. There's madhab Shafi'i, Hanafi, and Maliki. Those are madhab. So when he's saying the madhab is related to the scholar. So here's we like the difference. And let's take a look at another definition from other scholars. So for example, Al-Mawardi says, Al-Millah ma shara'ahu Allah. Al-Millah is what Allah has ruled, which means the Sharia, the rules of Allah. And he's saying, Ad-Din huwa ma'taqadahu an-nas. Ad-Din is what the people believe in. So here's like another difference. So the Millah is what rules comes to a certain prophet, and the deen is the aqidah, is the core, is the doctrine of the messenger. So now if you look at the meaning of the millah and the difference between the millah and the deen. So the deen is only for Allah, the definition of the deen in the Quran and the Sunnah, the deen is only Islam, and it's only one deen because it's only one aqidah, and it's only one faith, and it's only one belief for all the messengers. So all the prophets, all the messengers, they have one deen, which is al-Islam. So Musa alayhi salam has the deen of al-Islam, which is the aqidah of al-Islam, and Yusuf alayhi salam, and Isa, and Muhammad alayhi salam. So they all have one deen. Now, each one of those messengers, they have their own millah, which means the rules that belong to each messenger. So the millah here, it means the rules that belong to each messenger, and the deen is the aqidah, or what the people believe in. So that's the clear difference between the millah and the deen and the aqidah. Now the sharia is the same thing, which means the millah. The sharia, it's also the group of rules that came to a certain prophet. So that makes a sharia also. So the sharia of Musa alayhi salam is different than the sharia of Isa, different than the sharia of Muhammad alayhi salam. Same thing, millat Muhammad alayhi salam, different than millat Isa alayhi salam, different than millat Musa, different than millat Ibrahim, and so on. So these millals, so the group of millah is millal. Those millal are the rules that Allah have sent to the messenger for a certain ahkam. So now, if we look at the ahkam of this ayah, so we probably will be something very interesting that you see that almost all the ulama, when they discuss this ayah, they bring the hukum of the mirath, the inheritance. And because they all talking about the inheritance here, not in the details of the inheritance. It's actually, they're talking about the inheritance between the Muslim and the non-Muslim, or the kuffar among each others, or the millah, or different millahs among each other. So for example, Abu Hanifa, like there are two different groups here. So some of the ulama, the scholars saying, like all the kuffar are one millah, and they say in millat al-kufri wahida. So everyone non-Muslim is one millah. All the non-Muslims have one millah, and they use the ayah, like the ayah that says lakum dinukum waliya din. You have your deen and I have my deen. This is the ayah that they use in to support their dalil, or their meaning. And those are like a Shafi'i and Abu Hanifa. They are the one who use that dalil. And they're saying everyone non-Muslim is one millah. All the non-Muslims or the disbelievers are one millah. Now, another group of scholars, they're saying, no, there are different millas, so multiple groups. There are multiple groups, and each group has its own millah, or its own sect. So, and those are like the Malik and Ahmad. They're saying like the disbelievers are multiple millahs, and they're using also another dalil. They're saying of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that says, لا يتوارث أهل ملتين. A people of two different millahs, they don't inherit each other, meaning the Jews cannot inherit Christian, and the Christian cannot inherit Jews, or Muslim cannot inherit Jews, or Jews cannot inherit Muslim or Christian, or so on. So none of those can inherit each other's, because they also use another hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that says, لا يرث المسلم الكافر ولا الكافر المسلم. So the Muslim cannot inherit the kafir, and the kafir cannot inherit Muslims. So they use this dalil and saying that if there is a father and a son, like one of them is Muslim and when the other is kafir, they cannot inherit each other's. Like if the father has a son or a children that is non-Muslim, he cannot inherit him, and the vice versa. Or if someone has a wife that is non-Muslim, she cannot inherit him, and he cannot inherit her. So that's one opinion, and that's based on the understanding of this hadith. This is the group of the Muslimin who's like Malik and Ahmad said that. However, some of the Muslimin say no, the Muslim only can inherit the kafir, but the kafir cannot inherit the Muslim. The Muslim only can inherit the kafir, and they use another dalil also for that number one, that the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, that he said, Al-Islam yazidu wa la yanqus. Islam is superior and cannot be, or Islam is increasing and cannot be decreasing. So from this hadith, or another hadith also they say Islam ya'lu wa la yu'la alayh. So the Islam is superior and cannot be surpassed. So that means nothing can be on top or over Islam. So from these two hadith, they said the Muslim can inherit the kafir, but the kafir cannot inherit Muslim. And they also used another dalil that Umar ibn Khattab radiyallahu anhu and Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan and Mu'ad, they all had given inheritance to a Muslim from a kafir, but they don't give it to the other way around. So that's multiple, or that different opinions in these ahkam based on this ayah. However, I'm not going to take a certain side of the hukum. I'm not here to give a fatwa for what Muslim can inherit or not, but I'm just giving the different opinions among the fuqaha that, like, whether the Muslim can inherit the kafir, or kafir can inherit Muslims, or two different groups who are non-Muslims but living under the rule of Islam. Let's say Christian and Jews and Majusi and Hindusi and whatever other religions. If the hakim or the leader adopt this hukum that the Muslim cannot inherit kafir, so Jews cannot be inheriting Christian if they are under the rule of Islam, or they came to the rule of Islam, this is what we would rule for them if he adopted this hukum. Anyways, I just wanted to clarify these ahkam, because this has actually been discussed among the scholars a lot, and it's kind of like surprising how the fuqaha were focusing on these ahkam. And all the tafsir, you would see that all the mufassirin, they have used this ayah to discuss these rules in Islam. So the other ayah, or the continuation of the same ayah, that says, قُلْ إِنَّ هُدَى اللَّهِ هُوَ الْهُدَى. Say that the guidance of Allah is the only guidance. So Allah telling the Prophet ﷺ to say that the only guidance is the guidance of Allah. The only path, the only way to the Jannah is only the Islamic way, the Islam. And this is the way of the Prophet ﷺ. Why? Because all the other ways are been deviated from the right path. The Christianity, they were deviated from Isa alayhi salam. The Judaism were deviated from Musa alayhi salam. All other religions, they were deviated and they were astray away from the right path. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have sent the last messenger, which is Muhammad alayhi salam, to give the people the correct and the right path and the right way to the Jannah. And that's why in this ayah Allah says, قُلْ إِنَّ هُدَى اللَّهِ هُوَ الْهُدَى. The only guidance, the only true guidance is the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and everything else is the way to the hellfire. And if you remember the hadith of the Prophet alayhi salam, that he was sitting among the Sahaba and he put a straight line, and he uses a stick, and he draw a straight line, and he draw like a crooked lines next to it, and he said, this is the guidance and the way of Islam, and this is the right way, and those crooked ways are the ways of the shaitan, and each way there is a shaitan guiding the people to the hellfire. So this is like Allah is explaining to us and his messenger alayhi salam that there is only one way and there is only one path to the Jannah. So that's why here, probably when it comes to the discussion of whether the Jews and the Christians are believers or disbelievers, they are not believers, and they're obviously and definitely not believers, because they have to follow the path of the Prophet alayhi salam. If they were believers, why Allah have sent Muhammad alayhi salam to them and to everyone else in the universe, like in the entire humanity, to follow him? And he ordered them and commanded the Jews and the Christians to follow him. So if they were on the right path, if they were believers, so why Allah is sending the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam for them and everybody else to follow him? So obviously they are disbeliever, and they cannot be believer. They cannot believe believer in Islam and believer in the Christianity, the deviated Christianity, the corrupted Christianity at the same time. They cannot be believing in the Prophet, the message of the Prophet alayhi salam, and believe in the Judaism at the same time, because both of them are contradicting each other. This one says Allah, la ilaha illallah, and Muhammad Rasulullah, and the other one says Isa ibn Allah. So definitely they are not believers. So they cannot be believers in two different things. So that's why Allah making this very clear. This is the right path, everything else is the wrong path, and everyone should follow this path that Allah have sent to the humanity. And the continuation of the ayah, the same ayah, it says, وَلَئِنِ اتَّبَعْتَ أَهْوَاءَهُمْ بَعْدَ الَّذِي جَاءَكَ مِنَ الْعِلْمِ مَا لَكَ مِنَ اللَّهِ مِنْ وَلِيٍّ وَلَا نَصِيرٍ. And Allah is telling the Prophet ﷺ that if you have followed their desires after you receive the knowledge from Allah, then you would have no support from Allah. You would have no protector from Allah. And this ayah sounds like there is a threat to the Prophet ﷺ. There is a warning to the Prophet ﷺ that, oh, you Muhammad. Now, again, we know that this speech, when it comes to the Prophet ﷺ, it is also to the Ummah, to the entire Ummah. So Allah is telling Muhammad ﷺ, and he's telling us that you should not follow the desires of those Jews and the Christians, should not follow the incorrect and the corrupted way of their faith. And at the end of the ayah, and it says, if you do so, then you would have no protection from Allah. So this is a threaten, this is a warning to the Ummah of Muhammad alayhi salam not to follow the footsteps of the Jews and Christian again. So if you notice how much Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala emphasized on this meaning, which is not to follow any other nation previous to the Prophet alayhi salam, because they were corrupted and they were deviating. That's why I'm sending the new messenger, which is Muhammad alayhi salam, to follow him. This is very, very clear. So if someone tell us that, oh, the Jews are believers and the Christians are believers, this does not make any sense. And it contradicts with the Quran very, very clearly. So the next ayah, Allah says, الذين آتيناهم الكتاب يتلونه حق تلاوته. أولئك يؤمنون به ومن يكفر به فأولئك هم الخاسرون. Those who we have given the book follow it as it should be followed. It is they who truly believe in it. As for those who reject it, it is they who are the losers. So Allah is telling us here about the believers among the Jews and the Christians. Allah says, الذين آتيناهم الكتاب يتلونه حق تلاوته. So those are the people who believe in the previous messenger, which is Isa alayhi salam, for example, or Musa alayhi salam, and also they believe in Muhammad alayhi salam. So Allah is praising those people, and he's telling that those people are the truthful people, which are the ones who believe Musa alayhi salam, believe in Musa alayhi salam, or believe in Isa alayhi salam, and they believe in Muhammad, in the message of Muhammad alayhi salam, all together. And those are actually, we have been taught by the Prophet alayhi salam that those people, they have double rewarded. They will be rewarded for they believing in the previous messenger, and they will be rewarded for believing in the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam. And the end of the ayah says, وَمَن يَكْفُرْ بِهِ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْخَاسِرُونَ. Whoever disbelieve in this Quran, whoever disbelieve in this message, he is the biggest loser, and he's definitely one of the losers in the life after. And the next ayah, it will continue. It says, يا بني إسرائيل اذكروا نعمتي التي أنعمت عليكم وأني فضلتكم على العالمين. O children of Israel, remember my favor upon you and how I honored you above all the other nations. Now here's Allah is telling us, or telling actually Bani Israel, the children of Israel. Now the children of Israel, again, they include the Jews and the Christian. They both are the children of Israel. And at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, we just have those people who claim they're children of Israel are the Jews. Allah says, remember, to telling them, remember that the honor, the favor that I gave you when I saved you from the Pharaoh, and I have sent you al-man wa salwa, and I have make you established the power in the earth, and I gave you the specific, and I gave you this specialty that most of the messengers will be among you. And Allah is telling them, remember those favors, remember what I have done for you, and I made you honored among all other nations at that time. So here's probably this important to clarify that even the Jews today, they say, oh, in your Quran, Allah says that He has been selecting us, and He selected the children of Israel. Yes, that's correct. But He selected them at their time, at that time of Musa alayhi salam. But they are not selected today. The ones who are selected today are the ones who follow the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, the ones who follow the continuation of the prophethood from the time of Musa until today. So those are the people who are selected. So if you Jews wanted to be part of those selected people, you have to believe in the message of Muhammad alayhi salam. That's what Allah says about the ummah of Muhammad alayhi salam. He says, "Kuntum khayra ummatin ukhrijat linnas." You were the best nation, have been sent to the humanity. Now again, so the people, children of Israel, been selected, were honored in their time, at that time, but not today. The one who disbelieve in Musa alayhi salam, the ones who disbelieve in Isa, the ones who disbelieve in Muhammad alayhi salam, they are definitely not honored, and they definitely are not selected. So the next ayah, it says, وَاتَّقُوا يَوْمًا لا تجزي نفس عن نفس شيئا ولا يقبل منها عدل ولا تنفعها شفاعة ولا هم ينصرون. And guard yourself against the day when no soul will be for any help to another, no ransom will be taken, no intersection accepted, and no help will be given. So Allah is telling them to fear that day, to be aware of that day that no one can help anyone, no one is gonna be supporting any other. In the judgment day, no one is capable of helping anyone else except looking for forgiveness, for mercy from Allah for himself only. And that's why Allah, in that day, Allah described that day in another ayah where it says, يوم يفر المرء من أخيه وأمه وأبيه وصاحبته وبنيه ومن في الأرض جميعا ثم ينجيه. So Allah says in that day, everyone will be running away from his father, from his mother, from his children, from his wife, from anyone, from the entire humanity. They're looking only for their own help. They cannot help anyone else. So Allah is reminding the people of Bani Israel that remember this day, that, and they know that even in their book, there is a judgment day. So remember, in this judgment day, no one can help you but your work for and your belief of the messenger that I have sent to you. So, and that's another warning for them, and also for us. Again, like we are looking into that day, Allah is telling us, and He's warning us the same thing, that in this day no one can help any others, no one can support any others, and everyone is looking only to save himself only, not his father, not his mother, not his children, not his wife. None of those people can be at any help. And the next ayah, Allah says, وَإِذِ ابْتَلَى إِبْرَاهِيمَ رَبُّهُ وإذ ابتلى إبراهيم ربه بكلمات فأتمهن قال إني جاعلك للناس إماما قال ومن ذريتي قال لا ينال عهد الظالمين. Remember when Ibrahim was tested by his Lord with a certain commandments which he fulfilled, Ibrahim alayhi salam. Allah said, I will certainly make you the role model for the people. Ibrahim asked, what about my offspring? Allah replied, my covenant is not extended to the wrongdoers. So Allah says that He has tested Ibrahim alayhi salam in some tests, in multiple tests. And they're actually, the scholars talking about those tests, and they have different variation, different opinions about those tests. But we know that Ibrahim alayhi salam was tested, and we know one of the great, probably the greatest test that could happen to any human, that Allah has ordered you to slaughter your own son. And when Allah described this test, and He said, ذَلِكَ الْبَلَاءُ الْمُبِينُ, this is the real test. Allah calling this test is the greatest test. So Ibrahim alayhi salam definitely was tested. And he passed all these exams, and he passed all these tests. And Allah says in the same ayah, ابتلى إبراهيم ربه بكلمات فأتمهن. So Ibrahim alayhi salam, he fulfilled those requirements, he fulfilled those tests, and he passed all the tests. And that's why, and because of that, Allah says, or telling him, إني جاعلك للناس إماما, I will make you the role model, or imama. Now, imam here, in the translation says the role model, but imam has multiple meanings, and it has other meanings. The imam, it means the leader, it means the role model, it means the head of anything. So the Arab use the word imam. For example, they call the road, the street, they call it imam, because it guide you, it lead you to something. So anything in the leadership, anything lead you to something called imam. So that's why they call the imam of the salah, they call him imam, because he leads the people in the salah. That's why he's called imam al-salah. So the imam is the one who is leading people, and they call him the ruler of the Muslimin. They call him imam also, imam al-Muslimin, which means the leader or the ruler or the head of the Muslimin. So imam here, it means like the leader, the ruler, the head, the guidance, or the role model. All of these are the meaning of imam. And Allah is telling Ibrahim alayhi salam, after he passed passed all these tests and exams and very harsh exams and tests, Allah has selected him and made him a leader and a guidance and a role model for the people that comes after him. And they're saying also Imam could be any leader in whether in good or bad. And in Surah Al-Qasas, for example, Allah says, وَجَعَلْنَاهُمْ أَئِمَّةً يَدْعُونَ إِلَى النَّارِ. They are guidance or imams or leaders who call for the hellfire. So there are some imams, there are some people who are leading the people to the hellfire. If you remember the hadith of the Prophet, it says, دُعَاتٌ عَلَى أَبْوَابِ جَهَنَّمْ. There are people, they are calling for the hellfire. There will be a time that will come to the ummah that you will see some people, they call in for the hellfire. So, I mean, would you imagine something like this? Like someone invite you to the hellfire? So that's what the Prophet ﷺ said. Yeah, that this time it will come to the ummah, that there will be some people among this ummah, they will call the rest of the ummah to the hellfire. And instead of calling them to the Jannah, and instead of guiding them to the Jannah, there will be people guide them and call to the hellfire. And that's also the same thing as this ayah that Allah mentioned, جَعَلْنَاهُمْ أَئِمَّةً يَدْعُونَ إِلَى النَّارِ. Leaders, imams, they call to the hellfire. So the imam could be in the good, or the imam could be in bad. But Allah has selected Ibrahim alayhi salam to be imam in the good deed, imam in the faith, imam in the right path, to lead the humanity or to lead his ummah to the Jannah. And the rest of the ayah says, قَالَ وَمِن ذُرِّيَّتِي. So Ibrahim alayhi salam asked Allah, is like, what about my children? And Allah said, لَا يَنَالُ عَهْدِ الظَّالِمِينَ. The wrongdoer, the disbeliever will not get my blessing. Now, Allah, because he knows that some of his children, of offspring of Ibrahim alayhi salam, there will be some kuffar. So when Ibrahim was worried about his children, his descendants, his own offsprings, he asked Allah, like, and my people, my descendants, my offsprings also will get the same level that I get, will be like imams, and will be leading the ummah, will be in the Jannah, will be in the right path. Allah said no. He said, whoever disbelieve in me, whoever will be among the disbeliever, the zalimeen, he will not be part of this. He will not be protected by the covenant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this was a hint to Ibrahim alayhi salam that some of your children will be disbelievers. So Ibrahim alayhi salam was sad about that, because he was told that some of your children will not be on the right path. And we know that the son of Ibrahim alayhi salam was among the kuffar, and he was the ones who are they were not following or not believing in Ibrahim alayhi salam, or at least like some of the people of Ibrahim alayhi salam. In fact, the children of Israel also, after Yaqub, because Yaqub was from the children of Ibrahim alayhi salam, and some of his children, which is some of Bani Israel, were kuffar, and they were end up in the hellfire. So Allah is telling him that some of his children, or some of your children, will not be in the Jannah. So it doesn't mean that like the Jannah is based on the blood relation. So that's something I think we should understand in a great way, that how Allah is very just for the humanity. Even the children of the Anbiya, it doesn't mean that they will be in the Jannah just because they are the children of Anbiya. Nuh alayhi salam, his son, was among the kuffar, and not because he's the children of Nuh alayhi salam, or he's a son of Nabi, that means he's protected. This doesn't mean anything in the system of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Muhammad alayhi salam, his uncle, which is Abu Lahab, or his uncle Abu Talib, were not believers, and they were not going to the Jannah, and they will be going to the hellfire, as the Prophet ﷺ has told, and the Quran has told us. So this is from the justice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nothing will take you to the Jannah except your deen, except what you really believe in your heart, what you follow, what you do in this dunya is what going to take you to the Jannah or the hellfire. Not because you are the son or children of even a Nabi, doesn't mean anything. So this is a lesson for the Ummah today. And this ayah was said to the Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, but is also a lesson for us, that nothing will protect you from the hellfire except your belief or your faith or your action that you do in this dunya, which is going to decide where you going to end. So the ayah says, وَمِن ذُرِّيَّتِ قَالَ لَا يَنَالُ عَهْدِ الظَّالِمِينَ. So the ulama says, لَا يَكُونُ إِمَامًا ظَالِمًا. So among of your children cannot be a leader who is a wrongdoer. Which means, as we said, that even if a children of Anbiya, doesn't mean that they are protected or they will be secured from the Jannah. So this was the conclusion of the last ayah. So inshallah we'll stop here and we'll continue on inshallah with another session later on. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Barakallahu feekum.